It's becoming more and more clear by the day how imbalanced, unsustainable, and destructive our current world systems are. And there's clearly a need to rebel against this dying of the light. But is there a way to do so that allows us to remain rooted in and connected to our shared humanity? Over the next 3 episodes, we'll be exploring the potency of somatic therapy. The idea here is that by learning various techniques of expressing, integrating, and processing our emotions, we can remain rebelliously connected to our hearts in this increasingly hostile world, rather than shutting down or bypassing the gravity of the horrors that are being carried out in front of our eyes.
To bring us deeper into this topic and teach us how to apply somatic therapy in our own lives, we will today be joined by a special guest, Dr. Lara Wehbe. She's a trauma-informed somatic therapy practitioner and coach with a PhD in psychology of behavioral change, working with a variety of modalities such as internal family systems, inner child work, body work, emotional release, somatic attachment, and much more, all of which allows for the transmutation of dense emotions to occur. We hope you enjoyed the episode. So, we are very grateful to have you with us, Lara, for this first episode, which will be first of 3 episodes where we want to together understand what somatic therapy is and why it is important in the world, especially today, as well as tying it into the art of storytelling, because I believe that there is a huge component of this work that has to do with narratives. And that's also what we do at Noble Earth, like inspecting what are stories and how can we actually intentionally use them to move around in the world in a more free way. But to start us off on this introductory episode, Lara, if you could introduce yourself and also explain how you ended up being both a somatic therapy practitioner as well as holding a PhD in behavioral science, because these two are not always combined when people are pursuing this line of work.
Yes. So, hi, it's really good to be here and chatting with the both of you. I offer somatic therapy, and this is, it's been a journey to get to here. It's not the first job that I went towards, and it's been an evolution and a progress in my life. I initially started as a math teacher and then moved on to psychology and research, and then moved on to all things embodiment, and that guided me into somatic therapy. But yeah, so that's mainly just a brief introductory of what I do, and I can go more in depth if you want.
Yeah, could you describe why did you choose to do somatic therapy?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I'm Lebanese, and being from Lebanon has not always been an easy experience with all the struggles and the war happening back home. And I remember as a child, we as a family migrated and were displaced for war reasons and other reasons more than 7 times. And that movement of migration I know very intimately. It's not just my story, it's also the story of my mother line and my father line, and it's also within the culture. It's also within, it's very present within the Lebanese culture as well. And that, to me, created a lot of unsafety in my system. So, this theme of home and belonging was ruptured. And what that rippled into many different areas of my life, and it started with this safety is a very foundational human need. We need safety in order to thrive in other areas of our life, and if that's missing, then that's the foundation of what we need to thrive in life. And so that also rippled into the relational dimension, and being in a family unit where and also in a culture where mental health wasn't really at the forefront of our awareness, or even stigmatized in many ways, and we just got on with it. It was just the norm to be hypervigilant and in fear, and it was just a way of being. And I got to a place in my life where I felt like things weren't working out anymore. There's a lot of things bubbling up within me that led me to different destructive behaviors and ways of being. And I couldn't cope. I couldn't cope. And so I went into conventional therapies and that helped for a while, but it kept me in the story. It kept me in the mind. And, you know, also professionally, I mentioned that I was a mathematician and then went into psychology. So it was all about the mind. And throughout my PhD, I felt this lack of resonance with academia, and I didn't feel like I fit into the system anymore, and was craving embodiment. I was craving being in my body, for me first, more than anything else. And what happened was that I started dabbling into all these different modalities, and it started with sound, it went to dance, and then I fell on the neo-emotional release, and I just had this full body yes, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do for myself first. I didn't even think that I would be offering this to other people. So what began as a journey for myself, and just witnessing the transformations within me, really gave me the sense of, yeah, this is something I really want to do for others. And these themes that I brought up, the themes of safety, and it's really interesting now when I work with people, the first thing that they say is, yeah, there's this sense of safety that I get from you. And it just shows that, you know, the things that I lacked, I've worked on, and I'm now able to create for others, and also relationships. And when you don't have safety, you don't have that anchor within you, you know, within relationship with my parents, within relationship with friends, with the siblings, or intimate relationships, all of these I really struggled with, and which brought me to that curiosity of wanting to delve into the world of attachment, not from a conventional sense, from a because attachment conventionally is seen as relationship, intimate relationship. And how I see relationships is, you know, you're in life, then you're in relationship with everything. You're in relationship with your emotions. You're in relationship with yourself. You're in relationship with life, the unknown. You're in relationship with everything, really. Life, being in life is being in relationship. So yeah, it was beautiful to witness how I really transformed, and still am potentially different with different areas, how I've transformed such a difficult space within my life where I really struggled within relationships in general into discernment, into honoring myself and my needs, and rather than self-sacrificing and all these things that have been celebrated within my family unit and also culturally. Yeah, and also when I went through a very difficult phase in my life, I hit 30 and I had this big existential crisis, and it led me to divorce, leave my job and travel and come here to Scotland. And conventional therapy, although it helped for a while, but also there's the shadow aspect of it, which is it pathologizes people. It puts people into boxes. And that's where I was put in, and that wasn't really helpful for me. So that's why I was very drawn to the modality of internal family systems, which is a psychodynamic modality that really moves us away from the whole pathology and sees the self as a whole, compassionate, centered, curious being, where all of these different parts within us are activating, and it's like developing a curiosity to healing rather than seeing it as a burden.
Now, when you were describing your story, I got this image in my head, like imagine someone walking in a cave and they're with the torch. And the first time, or maybe without a torch, but the first time they're stepping through it, maybe they're going to stumble over some rocks, and maybe they're going to hit their head in something because they've never walked down this dark alleyway before. But then the more times you've gone through that, eventually you could even do it without a light, and you could even guide other people to do the same because you have walked down this alleyway And you know, it's not that you're trying to force away the bumps, but you're learning how to step with whatever exists within you. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of embodiment, that you actually know in your own physical being, not only theoretically, what an experience is like. And I have received an emotional release session from you, and then afterwards an integration process when I was going through what was for me a very difficult breakup. And I really felt that too. I felt so safe to just express whatever I needed. And I had a question relating to this for you, because what I felt, what was so special or helpful for me in that process was to have these 2 hours of just completely being free to let out whatever emotion I had. And what we did was an emotional release session. And maybe we can also describe a little bit what that looks like for those who don't know. But my question is, I feel that in the normal day-to-day life, it's a bit difficult because it's not always that you can release the emotions. And so I feel that very often I kind of like stop my emotions because maybe there is actually not time in that moment. Would you suggest that you kind of do those releases? Like, would you set aside time to release emotions? Or like, yeah, how do we work with emotion in a daily life?
Yeah, I'd like to answer your question. I'd like to talk about resistances, because, you know, we're born with the capacity to feel our emotions. Yeah, a baby doesn't inhibit when they're sad, when they're fearful, when they're angry, when they're joyful. So we have the capacity to feel our emotions. And the more we grow up, the more our expression of emotions becomes inhibited because of this social component of what is allowed, what is not allowed. And maybe the story is that we were told that we're too much, or that, boys don't cry, or whatever it is. Like maybe it's a social or cultural belief or construct that is conditioning us to or inhibiting our expression. So we want to really understand what this resistance is, because the body knows how to heal. The body knows how to express. It's just these conditionings that we have lived through in our childhoods because of this theme of unsafety, because we felt unsafe at certain times, that we had to develop these coping mechanisms as children to feel safe, or to restore some sort of balance within our system, because, you know, as children we don't have the capacity as we do as grown-ups to think our way through things. We just respond to things from the nervous system. Yeah, we freeze, we fight, we fawn, whatever that is. So I would say, in order to get intimate with your emotions, we want to start by understanding what is it that's stopping you from feeling. Yeah, and there's many different type of resistances. We can speak a little bit about some resistances, that some are mental, some are emotional, some are a felt sense as well, constrictions in the body or whatnot. And as I said, thoughts can be.
I have this sometimes in my head. It's like, I don't have time for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because so the emotional wave that is expressed in the body takes about 90 seconds, and science is showing that there's a wave of felt sense of an emotion that is felt within the body, and if we just allow it, it just goes within that time frame. It varies between people, but the reason why it lingers is because of resistance, is because we're not allowing ourselves to feel, or because of attachment, because we're attaching ourselves to a certain state. So it's basically resistance. So regulating or just really tending to your emotions doesn't need to be something that's very complex. It can be as simple as going to the bathroom if you're in a room filled with people. Going into the bathroom and taking just a moment where you're placing your hand on your heart and you're just noticing your the felt sense in your body, and you're breathing with that, and you're noticing the constriction, you're noticing the chatter in your mind, you're noticing what emotion is coming through, and you're breathing with it, and you're just saying, I'm here. I'm noticing you, because what your body is doing is it's speaking to you in that moment. It's speaking to you through senses, through emotional reactions. And just by acknowledging this experience can be already 70% of the work done, because you're holding yourself, you're containing yourself.
Now, when you're describing it, it actually is so simple. And I think me and probably many people kind of overcomplicate it. But it does make sense, because it's like if you're constantly just venting, when things arise, nothing will build up. Well, if you're like, oh, I can't, then of course it's going to some point explode. So thank you for this. And I wonder if we can work a little bit backwards now to describe to someone who doesn't know, what does an emotional release session entail? And then after that also, if we were to describe to an alien that arrived on this planet and they didn't know, what is somatic therapy and how does it differ from conventional therapy?
Yeah, so I'll start with somatic therapy. And, conventional therapy, you're just sitting with a therapist and you're talking about your story. You're very much conscious. It has, again, its advantages, but the disadvantage is that you're looping in the story. You're functioning from the mind, and you're not really including other processes. So when we're talking about somatic therapy, we're including not just the mind, but the nervous system. We're including the body. And, when we're looking at trauma, when I ask, what's the first word that comes to you when you think of something that's traumatic? What's the first word that comes?
Somatic, like movement.
For me, I think explosion.
Yeah. Or pain. Like, it's painful, isn't it? And our mind doesn't have any pain receptors. Our fascia does. So all of the pain from these experiences are retained in your fascia. Yeah, the memories are in the mind. The feelings are in the mind. It's the interpretation of the emotion. And emotions are also in the body. So what we're doing is we're including the mind and the body. You're an entire being. You're not just your mind. Yeah, when we're also working with somatic therapy, we're working with unconscious processes. And that's where the biggest portion of you lies. The limiting beliefs, the unmet needs, the shadow desires, the unexpressed and exiled emotions. So these are the things that we want to be looking at, that maybe in day-to-day you're unable to access because you're just functioning from that conscious place. So that's the dimension that somatic therapy brings, in addition to talk therapy. And I think that they both work well together, but you can't just look at the mind, you can't just look at the body. And that's what I try to do within my clinic, is to include both. And so you asked also about how does an emotional release session work. So usually I survey people, so I ask them about open-ended questions about the major events in their lives, behavioral patterns, their relationship to their emotions, questions to understand better their nervous system. I also send through an attachment quiz, an Enneagram test, which speaks towards the survival strategies that you've gathered throughout your life, and it pairs well with attachment as well. I work with the needs dimension, which basically is the 5 universal human needs, but that are translated through the nervous system. So it's like they're correlated to the nervous system, but also the somatic imprints and different developmental phases of your life, and how each of these dimensions are are showing up in your life and where your core wound lives. So all of these, this is how the research into you starts. And then we get to the actual session, and in the session there's always a little bit of a talk about these surveys and to highlight the aspects that feel needed to bring forward. And then we hop onto the bed, and the client is just invited to tune into the body, and we spend about 10 to 20 minutes depending on the needs, how much is the need for embodiment. Some people already come through and they're already activated, and other people need more time to bring their awareness into the more subtle layers of their consciousness, which is through the felt sense, through the implicit memory. And from there, what we're doing is we're accessing different consciousness container, we call it. And it's containers or imprints that are living in the body that have different somatic felt senses, that contain your memories, that contain your unmet needs, your emotions. And we're going into that, and then we're opening that so that it comes up to the surface, and that would be the processing, so that we can allow the body to come back into a state of homeostasis, into a state of wholeness. And after each session, there's a period of, okay, so take a bit of time to integrate. And the best way for integration is passive integration, is really a lot of rest. And it can also be journaling. It can also be processing through thoughts, through feelings, through keeping in touch with how our nervous system is within this week. Yeah, and then we schedule a call. I call it an integration call, because to me, an emotional release session is a journey into yourself. It's like, it's very shamanic approach that I have. You're really going into the deepest depth within you, and then you're coming through with all these insights. Yeah, and what are you going to do with it? So how do you bring these lessons? How do you bring these insights into your day-to-day and integrate them? And this is what the call is for. It's for, okay, how can I apply this on a day-to-day? How can I stay in this on a day-to-day? Yeah.
It's kind of interesting the way you talk about it here. It sounds like it's kind of working backwards from the traditional system, where you go in with the story and you go in through the mind, and you're trying to figure out like how you can use that to change the body. But you instead go in through the body, and then afterwards say, okay, if we balance things here, how can we then create this sense of wholeness or serenity in the mind?
Yeah, it's like a top-down versus bottom-up approach, and it's working again with the nervous system, and we know that the vagus nerve is so it connects to various organs in the body, and so it's gathering information from the body and all the way into the mind, and also sending information from the mind into the body. And the afferent pathway, which goes from the body to the mind, has 80% more nerve endings than the efferent pathway, which goes from the mind to the body. And so can you imagine how much information the mind is receiving from the body? So because there's just so much, there's the gut-brain connection. We can go on and on. There's just so much. So what we're doing is we're giving that its space, definitely.
Yeah, it's crazy how it kind of flows with this idea that, like in the West, we always think about ourselves as this thing, right? As one thing. And we haven't really dissected it. Whereas like in a lot of the Eastern philosophies, you kind of learn to detach yourself from your mind even, and also from your body, and become like an observer of some sort, right? And the premise of this is very much to like reestablish, like you say in the beginning, the relationship between these different elements that constitute us. Mm-hmm. So rather than see ourselves as this one single being, realize that there are all these different layers and different elements in communication with each other, right? Mm-hmm. And we need to facilitate their relationship. We need to facilitate that things are harmonic between them.
Yeah. You've said it so beautifully. It is that, and we tend to identify ourselves with our thoughts, with our emotions, and we are not our thoughts, we are not our emotions, we are the whatever thing that is witnessing these experiences within us. And that's why I love IFS so much, because it brings this perspective of even your thoughts is a part of you that's activated now. It's a belief that's running through, and even your emotions, that's a part of you that's activated now. And we can get more curious and understanding, okay, so what is the role of this part? What does it want to do? And your body wants to protect you at every single moment. The whole purpose of your body is to keep you or bring you back into balance, into homeostasis. Think about it on a biological sense. That's what your immune system does. Similarly, your psyche. Even though we think, but this is such a weird mechanism, and why is it that I'm doing this? And by bringing that level of compassion to your system to say, even this maladaptive way of being is a way your system is trying to protect you, by bringing you into the familiar way of being, by bringing you into safety. That's what it is doing. But you get to a point in your life when you're realizing that there is another way. I can do things differently.
I wonder if you can actually describe to people that don't know what IFS is, but also reflection on what you were just saying. It almost makes me want to cry, because it's so beautiful in a way that our bodies and our minds and our emotions are constantly speaking to us. And it makes me sad that we have built a structure of society where we're told to block all of this communication between the different layers, like you were describing, because it's actually so cool. Even if we get ill or if we get like some symptom, it's our body's way of trying to tell us that we need to shift something, right?
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And having that level of compassion and just understanding that your body at every moment is doing everything possible to keep you safe. How gorgeous is this? There's this softening of a resistance and an acceptance of what is, and even your diseases, even your symptoms, seeing that from that perspective, that this is your body's way of telling you that there's something that is off, and it's trying to protect you even through these diseases. So I'll get to your question on IFS. And so IFS is a psychodynamic modality that is, I did say, non-pathologizing. And what it does is it sees the self as, we call it self in presence. So the self as compassionate, as centered, as curious, and there's many different attributes. And when we're able to access these qualities, that is the self in presence. And anything else is not. It's part of you. It's a part of you. It's either a wounded inner child or a protector part that is trying to, again, protect you for some reason. And often it's a protector part that's trying to protect you from something that you've exiled, something that your system has exiled, like feeling lonely. Loneliness is such an exiled emotion, and very commonly exiled, actually, because it's so tough to be with that emotion. It's so tough to face it, sit with it. But there's obviously many different types of exiles, and it's what your body feels is unsafe to feel or witness. It's a part of you that you've either consciously or unconsciously suppressed, repressed, shunned away. So these protective mechanisms, we call them, so there's the firefighters, and the firefighters are the from the name, they're the action takers. They're the ones that are taking action to create safety. They feel the fire, they're like, right, we gotta go and sort this out. The managers are the thinkers, the inner critic, the voices that we hear. These are the parts of us that want to manage situations rather than do. And both of them are playing a role. And it's actually a way more complex system, because sometimes the managers and the firefighters are working together, and other times are completely in disagreement with each other. And that's where the inner conflict comes through. And again, it's learning how to, the point of IFS is to come through into the self and presence and witness all of these parts and bring this homeostasis, this state of balance and with all of the, between all of the parts. And you can only do that through compassion.
Why do you think that we like collectively shy away so much from feeling these emotions? Is it just like a lack of knowledge or insight about the process? Because the way you describe it, it seems like there's a lot less pain involved if you just get rid of the resistance. And yeah, you feel lonely for 90 seconds, but I think I can manage that. As opposed to, you know, sitting up stressing all night, wondering if you're going to die alone or whatever, you know, like everybody's been through at some point in their life. Where does this come from, do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, it's way more complex than we think. And to start, not all of our emotions are ours. Some are the collective. Some are, we might be too sensitive that we're tapping into, for example, the grief of the collective, the loneliness of the collective. And when we're looking at bigger emotions like grief and loneliness, it's I would say the 90-second thing doesn't always apply. Yeah, grief is the mother of all emotions. She's the well of darkness where, you know, you go in and sometimes you think, I'm never going to get out, but you end up getting out. And so sometimes these emotions are, within the collective field, and sometimes they're transgenerational. Sometimes they're passed down, and maybe this resistance to feeling this loneliness is your father's father's, and that has been the coping mechanism, and it's been an inherited coping mechanism outside of awareness. And so there comes a time where someone down the line says, okay, this is not working, there's something off, so I need to address this. So that's another factor as well, the transgenerational component. And also, now there's a rise in awareness in mental health, and we're seeing that within people. But if you look at generations past, it wasn't the case. You know, from my mother and father and the generations back, the mental health was so taboo, was so neglected. They just got on with things. We're okay. No need to complain. We just go. We just do things. And that gives absolutely no space for them to process their own trauma, their own processes. And so everything that they carry, we've inherited. There's also social conditioning. So, you know, if there's a societal norm that men aren't supposed to be vulnerable, then men are going to buy into that belief of men aren't supposed to be vulnerable. So my vulnerability is not allowed. So how can if I allow my vulnerability, therefore I'm not a man? That's just an example. Women cannot be angry. They can cry as much as possible, but no anger. If a woman is angry, then she's deemed as, judged as a witch or whatever. Yeah. So there's so many factors at play. And it's really this process of deconditioning, like taking all of these parts, pieces.
I like what you said about the sometimes the emotions you feel are not even your own. I remember I was in Tokyo once, and I loved the city, but there was like this deep, lonely vibe I felt. And I don't know if it came from me particularly, but I didn't feel particularly lonely at that time. But it was as I was walking around there, I felt more lonely than I've ever been in my whole life. And it felt like it was coming from around me, as if you were sort of standing inside a monitor like of music, and like the vibrations were just drumming on you or something. But how do we then, assuming that it is some sort of interplay between what we have within ourselves and what is around us, how do we guard ourselves, or how do we consciously engage with whatever is then happening in the collective? Because sometimes if the collective is just crashing out, maybe I don't necessarily want to feel like I'm crashing out the whole time. I want to like take care of my family. I want to establish some harmony in my home. I want to create joy through my hobbies or whatever. How do we relate to these things?
So I would say that when it comes to these big emotions, I'm gonna go for a shadow work perspective where to me, mirror work is super important. Why? Because whatever you're perceiving in the world exists already within you. If you have a resonance towards something, then therefore it is already existing within you. And if you're feeling or resonating with that collective loneliness, therefore it is resonating of a process that's already within you. And let's talk about this initial trauma that every human has. It's this separation from source as beings. You know, that is how I like to see the world. But I mean, this might not resonate with many people. But when you're in this sense of unity, then you come into the world, and then you're separated from source. And or if you want to take it on a biological level, you're a fetus in the mother's womb, and you're together in this symbiotic relationship with the mother, and then after birth you're separated. You're just this individual organism that needs to survive. I mean, obviously you're dependent, but there is this disconnection that is a human experience. So that this experience of loneliness exists within us. It's a human emotion. Every human emotion we are all capable of tuning into and tapping into. So I would say initially, have you done the work to really sit with your loneliness? And if not, then maybe this is an invitation for you to do that, to really be with that loneliness. And, you know, if we think about the world today and how it's constructed, this whole consumerism way of being, it's really tackling this wound of loneliness, of feeling so incomplete, so disconnected, that you need to fill your space with things, with food, with whatever it is, just to fill this void within you, this loneliness. And so it is a wound that's more common than we think, and we owe it to ourselves to really, really, really sit with that. And I know that I had that wound so strongly within me that I resorted to drugs. I resorted to like overconsumption of foods, to consuming relationships as well with men. And it just was this excuse for me to distract myself from being with that loneliness. And the moment it was in 2020, that moment it was like a pure isolation from the world, where I chose to leave a relationship and had this impulse that I needed to be on my own. And I went through this whole celibacy phase of 2 years. And it was the most difficult thing that I did. But my God, how much it taught me. And it brought me back to, I'm not coming from a place of need. I'm coming from a place of want. And there's obviously different layers to it. So sitting with your loneliness is key to individuating, to getting to know yourself separate from others. Yeah. And so if you've done the work, then, and you're still sensitive and connecting to the collective field, just by asking the question when you're feeling something, is this mine? And if you get if you get a yes, then you know that you need to work with it. If you get a no, and we can talk about the discernment, yeah. If you get a no, then that awareness on its own decreases the intensity of the experience. You're like, oh, hang on a minute, not mine. You can just return it. But yeah, I can talk about discernment if that's...
Yeah, how do you know what is a yes and how do you know what is a no in your body?
Yeah, so different people tap into that discernment in different ways. Some people feel, some people know, some people sense, yeah, some people see. So we all have this ability, and we differ in what we lean towards. So for me, it's a knowing, but also when I ask my body, I get a movement upwards as a yes, and a movement downwards as a no. From my center. And, you know, other people, they just know. Other people, they feel like an expansive feeling in their chest and a contraction in their chest when it's a no. So it's really getting to know this, and I've had to exercise that skill, and it's starting with simple questions that are close-ended, so that questions that you already know the answer to. Yeah, for example, You can ask Niels, your body, to show you your yes and no and see what you get. And then you can say, is my name Niels? And then you keep on asking questions that are yes. And then you see if the results is consistent. And you can do the same for the no. There's also like tuning your body. So you can stand and ask the question. If your body tilts forwards, that's potentially a yes. If it's moving backwards, then that's maybe a no. You can tune into what yes and no is for you. We can do this practice if you like.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
So yeah, maybe you can just tune in with your body just now and connect with your breath and notice your internal experience. And you can just ask the question, body, show me my yes, and just be open to whatever answer is coming through. It can be hearing yes. It can be feeling some movement in the body. It can be any sensation, any emotion. Body, show me my yes, and just be open to it. Set that intention. I want to be open to receiving that answer. Body, show me my yes. And then you can ask, body, show me my no. And again, being so open, no matter how your mind judges this experience as weird or unconventional, just can you be open to listening? And maybe you can let me know, both of you, what did you get for your yes and what did you get for your no?
For me, it was super clear now, actually. When it was yes, I felt like I was shining like a sun.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was no, it was like completely shut down, the shininess that I felt.
Okay, so it's more like a visual, so you're seeing.
Yeah, no, more like a feeling. A feeling of,
Okay.
yeah, a feeling of this shining and a feeling of it closing.
Okay. So can you ask your body now, body, is my name Anya? What'd you get?
Yeah, I feel the shining.
Okay. And you can keep on asking yes questions and confirming that this is how your body is responding. And then you can also do that for the no.
I'm going to try this tonight.
Okay. Niels, what did you get?
I felt like a small contraction between two of the vertebrae on the no, almost like a little bit of a hunch, cowering. But on my yes, I'm still not sure, which seems very on brand. So I'm not exactly sure what my yes was. It felt a little bit like awareness up here, but I think I would need to do it a little bit longer.
So can you ask your body now, is my name Niels? Tune in. Is my name Niels? What do you get?
It's like a light feeling and like an awareness up here.
Okay, so that's your answer today. Maybe tomorrow it'll be different. So it's always tuning in with what is your yes, what is your no. And it's practicing this discernment. It's practicing, okay, so I'm going on an intuitive walk. I'm just gonna tune in with which path feels more of a yes for me. Is it this one or this one? Oh, I want to go there, and see where that leads you. Do I want to drink my coffee or do I want to drink my tea today? So coffee, I'm getting a no. Yes for tea, okay, whatever. So it can be like exercise through the simple things. You're not gonna straight away ask, what's my purpose in life or whatever. You start simple, and so that's how I practice my discernment, and it's still a muscle that I'm practicing. I'm not. I feel like it's something to.
A life journey.
A life journey, yeah.
But also now, as we're starting to move towards the end of this first conversation, I wonder, like all the things that we have been speaking about, how is it applicable in the world today? Because we have this somatic way of approaching life rather than just using our mind to navigate. We're also now, through the work that you're doing, including all the signals that we're receiving from our body and then combining that with our mind, because it's also a fantastic tool. But in the world we are experiencing right now, which is very chaotic and very overwhelming. Why is this type of work important?
Well, I believe that self-awareness is the key to everything, but not just self-awareness, self-containment and self-responsibility and sovereignty has never been more important to step into. If we look at our world leaders, they are wounded inner children operating from that space and creating all the havoc. If we're looking at, all that we are experiencing within the media spaces, it's this war on our attention. Even on how other things operate, we're going towards this place where people are taken away from their sovereignty, they're taken away from their own power for obedience, for compliance, and given that the systems today in place are so corrupt and so, let's just keep it at corrupt. We owe it to ourselves to step into this self-leadership, to know ourselves enough, to know what it is that triggers us so that we're not functioning from that place, to know what it is that we want to create in this world, because guess what? This world there's a big aspect that is dying, and we need people who dream. We need people who want to create something new, something that is different from our current systems, that actually is sustainable, that actually is from the heart, that actually is caring for the individual rather than power and like extracting from others. And if you want to go more spiritually, I think our reality is really reflecting our inner world. And so this reality that we're living in, we've as a collective co-created, and so there's definitely shadow elements in that we are witnessing today. And how do we face these shadow aspects of our collective? How do we accept it? Because that's what shadow work is. It's facing the aspects of us that we've exiled and we've repressed. How can we accept that this is where we're at, this is what we've created? And from there, how can we invite the idea of, I want to create something different? And we can only create something different when we have done the work for ourselves, not operating from this wounds and from past ways of beings that definitely aren't working for us anymore. So
it relates a little bit to a concept that we have been talking about, noble rebellion, because like you're describing, there are so many things that are off or skewed in the world. And so naturally, and I think correctly, we would want to rebel because it's not working, but doing that in a noble way where you're holding on to love as the core. And that relates back to what you were talking about in the beginning of how you see the individual in IFS. Because if we see that at our core, all of us are actually compassion and love and kindness, even the people that are taking really, really strange and horrific actions within the systems. And from that place, you can still disagree with what's happening and you can still move towards changing, but you're coming from a place of love rather than coming from a place of hatred or coming from a place of destruction. And I feel that's why the work is so important, because by allowing the emotions to move through you, you can come back to the root, which is actually, I believe, love. The reason why we're angry is because we love this world and we love our children and we love each other and ourselves. Yeah. And it's not fair what is happening, but the anger arises, I believe, from the love that's underneath it. Yeah. And I believe the work can help you to tap into that.
Yeah, yes. And there's so much grief with what is dying. There's so much grief with the suffering, the collective suffering. There's so much anger and rage, and anger and rage is so needed, because without it, we cannot create changes in the world. We cannot restore this balance of injustice that we're witnessing in the world. And so we need these emotions. And each one brings a certain message. Each one has its own intelligence to create the changes that we want. So, yeah, absolutely.
Just one last thing that we can maybe end on. Could you just, for fun, maybe describe your idea of a world where everybody went through this, and like how would that look? What is the potential for this? Just share like a beautiful vision of it.
Love it. And maybe we can co-create this dream vision, huh? I would see on an individual level, I would see people from a place of love, compassion, and groundedness and self-responsibility rather than reactivity. I would see systems in place that are feeding the individual and not privatized as what we're seeing now. That actually communities that are involved are also engaging in creating life that is sustainable for everybody, and not just for humans, but for all living beings and for the earth as well, and really understanding our interconnectedness with the living world, that we are nothing without it, and to start healing this mother wound that we carry within us because this level of destruction of earth that we're witnessing today. And to develop a capacity to communicate from a place of truth, from a place of responsibility as well, that we're not shying away from conflict, but we're not in this energy of blame towards others. We're also creating systems and countries where they're collaborating in how to make this earth a more beautiful and thriving place for all of us to be in, rather than it being so fragmented in some ways, and celebrating all cultures, celebrating all colors, celebrating all differences, and developing deep compassion for processes, for emotional expression, and encouraging these spaces. And so much to be said, and also spaces where people can be in their expression, because I mean, this is something that I do with, for example, ecstatic dance, or any other space that where we're just so free to
imagine if every office had a screaming room.
And uninhibited. Exactly. There are again, going back to this example of when we're young toddlers, we don't have that inhibition. We grow up and we get depressed because we're so inhibited. So that freedom of expression, and there's tribes that have a laughter day or even a crying day or a rage day. And I was watching this documentary. I can't remember where the community is, but there's a community, whenever there's conflict, they stop whatever it is and they dance it. And and once the edge is off, then they can sit down and have a conversation together. And I was like, yes, that's so good. And not to say that it's not difficult to navigate relationships and navigate these, dynamics of how can we co-create this life together. But it starts with taking full responsibility and sovereignty and of our health, of our well-being, of our choices, and that ripples into the system, and having systems to support that for us humans as well.
So summarized, hurt people, and this is like a gentle steadfastness or something like that.
It's not an absolute truth, because hurt people sometimes heal.
Okay. Yeah, doesn't have quite the same ring to it, but I guess that's true. Hurt people heal people. Actually, no, it could work.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lara.
Thank you.
I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Although this is where we ended today, if you're enjoying the conversation, we have 2 more episodes with Lara coming right up, where we'll be exploring all things mind, body, and story related. So stay tuned.
And if you wish to dive deeper into Lara's work, please find her links in the description below. For now, stay brave and rebelliously connected to your hearts.